Welcome and thank you for listening to the Muses of the Crystal Lotus.
Cheers, people.
Good morning and welcome to another episode of the Muses of the Crystal Lotus Shop. I'm Shauna.
I'm Jeannie.
I'm Tina. And I'm Stephanie.
Today we're going to be talking about something that a lot of people scoff at. Post-traumatic stress disorder. And we're going to be asking some questions of Jeannie.
She's back.
She's back. We missed her. Jeannie, what is post-traumatic stress disorder?
Post-traumatic stress disorder is a disorder that causes anxiety, can lead into panic, and really messes with you.
What are some of the things that cause it, though?
There are triggers that cause the post-traumatic stress. As in the name of it, post-traumatic. You've had something in your life that has been
Trauma.
very strong impact on you. And you're having difficulty adjusting to it and overcoming these so-called triggers.
Can I ask when I think post-traumatic stress, typically I relate it to, and I mean I know better, but the general population relates it to things like war. Now, we know that you are a veteran.
Yes.
So some of the PTSD does come from the exposures of being at war and being part of the service, right?
Yes.
It also could be from accidents.
But there's other triggers or causes to PTSD,
Yes.
right? It's not just
PTSD can affect anybody,
It's-
not just soldiers. It's
Abuse.
more prominent in soldiers. Because that's where it actually started to come to light. And as a society, most people are like, well, just get over it. And that's the worst thing you can do to somebody with PTSD.
Right.
Because there is no just getting over it. It is a process that you have to go through in order to come to terms and acceptance with what you have dealt with.
Right.
Whether it be war or sexual trauma or abuse, mental abuse.
But even things like first responders,
Yes.
witnessing, car crashes,
Yes.
or things that they deal with in their professions.
Yes.
ER doctors, psychologists. I mean,
Nurses.
anyone can have
Anyone.
an event.
A parent
Losing a child,
losing a child.
a spouse. Sometimes that can be pretty traumatic too.
Yes.
Especially if they witnessed.
I think the one thing that gets me all the time is people say, "Oh, get over it. It's all in your head." Yes, it is all in the head.
That's the point.
Mhm.
That's the point. It's not something that shows on the body all the time. And most people that I know, they do just fine day to day, and then something will trigger it.
There's a lot of
Fireworks.
high-functioning people that will come in or just be anywhere, and they look like, high-functioning business folk. They got their shit together, and in here they could be breaking down. They could have extreme anxiety. They can, come across something throughout their day that just boom triggers a memory or that event, and it just all starts flooding back through. But they don't ever release it out. They keep it inside.
Well, my pet peeve about one of these things, and I want to get this out there because a lot of people are so tied up in their own enjoyment that they don't realize that there might be somebody living next door that's not enjoying it. And that is fireworks.
Exactly.
A lot of veterans loud noises
Reminds me
will
of
set
war.
them into one of these
Panics.
panic attacks. And
I would be one of those.
there is a little hint out there as to homes that have veterans in them. They have a green light burning in the window, usually at night. And if your neighbor has a green light in their front window, don't be setting off cherry bombs underneath it. This is not a funny thing. This is not something that, you really need to do. You can set off the quiet firecrackers if you want to, or take it somewhere else. But this actually puts veterans and a lot of other people who have problems with loud noises, it puts them into that panic attack. So be a little courteous. Be conscientious of who in your neighborhood might be suffering from this, who's a veteran.
I think that's really hard because a lot of the times, not to play devil's advocate,
Mhm.
but just from some of the viewers' perspectives, even like a lot of the times we think of fireworks as our freedom celebration.
Yes.
That has been always the thing we celebrate 4th of July with the fireworks because that's a
And
celebration
Labor
of our
Day
freedom,
and
Labor
all kinds of
Day,
other
and
stuff.
all of the things.
Fourth of
So,
July,
I think it's really hard sometimes for people to realize that might be affecting people that have been in war, particularly because one, we've never been there. I'm just gonna say I've never been somewhere where I've had to worry about
For
my
me, as
life
devil's
and hear
advocate,
gunshots and stuff.
Try to remember that, yes, we are a free country. We have the right to celebrate that we're a free country. But keep in mind that the military is what gave us this free country. And you're basically torturing them to celebrate your freedoms. So try to keep that in mind when you're doing this. Be a little bit considerate. You don't have to do it right in somebody's backyard.
And me, for one, with the fireworks. And it affects everybody differently that has PTSD. I go into a panic mode. I start shaking. I can't breathe. And if it continues for very long, I will pass out.
And that's a panic attack. I mean,
Mhm.
that's full blown panic attack.
Yeah. And like I said, it affects everybody differently. Some people can handle it better. Some people handle it worse. Some people will actually have flashbacks and go back to when they were in that environment and respond to anybody approaching them as if they were in that environment. So
Now, which part of your service, what was it that started it? Was there one particular incident that you remember that started?
yeah, but I'm not at liberty to discuss that.
That's okay.
Oh, okay.
That's okay.
It's fun.
It's there's
But that's okay because that also helps people, our viewers, understand a little bit more about there are some things that people just can't talk about.
Mhm.
And even, when people say, have you seen a therapist? Sometimes for post-traumatic stress disorder when it comes to like veterans or professions in which there's that confidentiality, you can't really say what's going on to help work through that particular event sometimes. And so then that's when you kind of snowball into, well, it's all in your head. Well, no, it's not. I just can't talk about it.
and in some cases you've got the HIPAA law that comes into effect there, and as with the military, we have top secret clearance that we can't talk about.
Right.
So you got to take in consideration that whenever somebody's going through this stuff, sometimes they can't talk about it for legal reasons. But in the case of with a therapist, the HIPAA law covers the security of the military. So
That's good to know.
you can talk with a therapist about stuff. because of that HIPAA law.
Now, sounds aren't the only thing that can trigger
No,
PTSD.
sight, your senses.
Yeah.
Sight, smell, touch, sound,
Taste.
taste.
Now, I kind of, it's kind of like, and I know this isn't like PTSD related, but have you ever been driving down the road in your car and you just kind of come across an area that smells familiar?
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, I don't know what that smell is, but then you start getting flashbacks of like when you were a kid driving around with your mom, watching, looking at Christmas lights, and you're like, wow, that was really weird. But that's how it works, right?
Yes.
That's a trigger of some sort.
I have another trigger of mine, and I can talk about this. My mom died whenever I was a child, and she choked on some roast beef from beef stew. To this day, I cannot eat beef stew.
Well, I mean, that's understandable.
But let me ask you something though. Knowing this,
Mm-hmm.
okay, you know your mom died from this. You know you can't eat certain things because of it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you see somebody choking, can you do Heimlich? Can you help them, or are you just frozen because of this?
No, I can do Heimlich. I have been trained first aid CPR.
I was just curious if the syndrome itself.
Sometimes people freeze,
Some people would freeze. Some
fight,
people-
flight, or freeze. So those are the three
Yes.
responses to the stress.
And me personally, I'm the type of person that I'm doing everything that I can to prevent anything else from happening. So, yes, I would be able to do that. I would be able to take charge of the situation, do the Heimlich, whatever needed to be done.
Well, not knowing really a whole lot about post-traumatic stress myself, I have millions of questions. But one of the ones that I want to throw in there, and you know we're always going to advertise one way or another. You're the director of creative expressions.
Yes.
You use creative expressions as an outlet
Yes.
for people.
Yes.
And that started because you were using art to deal with your problems?
Yes.
Okay. But you also work with sound, and you work with crafting, and you work with talking,
Mm-hmm.
and you work with so many different medias. How do you help someone with all the different medias that you have?
Well, some people, that goes back to the touch
Mm-hmm.
and the sight. Some people can't deal with paint.
Okay.
The texture of it, just something about it just triggers them.
Okay.
So I have different stuff that they could do. Like create a little craft or something. I have woodworking. I have all kinds of stuff that I could do to work around what their triggers are and teach them how to use that ability to release some of that stress and anxiety.
Okay.
There's many non-medical approaches to helping people with post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yes.
I know as I was doing a little bit of pre-research into the topic because I'm not 100% familiar, I did find some instances where people use yoga,
Mm-hmm.
meditation, even massage therapy, which was
Yes.
one that caught me off guard because I wasn't, at first I was like, well, how can massage therapy help with the mental side of post-traumatic? But I guess there's a lot of stress that we hold in our bodies.
Yes.
And so just being able to release the tension of like the tension and stress knots in our bodies can cause a sense of relaxation. It helps them kind of escape
I
a
know.
little bit.
Not just massage therapy, Reiki therapy also helps with that.
Mm-hmm.
because it helps to relax. It opens up the chakras. It allows the energy to cleanse.
But it also works on the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual
Yes.
levels. So it works on everything.
Yeah.
Wherever
And
it's
then
needed.
there's music therapy, and then the art therapy, of course, that came up a lot. Art therapy for post-traumatic stress disorder. But there's also like acupuncture
Mhm.
and tapping.
Yes.
Yep.
That little
Yeah.
get rid of the stress.
There's certain points that you can tap
Reflect-
on.
What's
Reflexology
funny though
points.
is
Yeah.
I was just looking at the monitor when we did this. When we said tapping, each of us tapped
Yeah.
a different place on the body.
We're all familiar with tapping. I know for me, personally, when I get anxious, my point is right here. And I
Thymus.
tap the thymus, yeah.
Mhm.
And I tap my thymus. It's kind of weird. You know, my husband thinks it's weird because we'll be driving in the car, and sometimes driving around is kind of, it makes
Especially
me
if you're
anxious.
being driven.
Yeah, because I don't have control of the wheel, right?
Exactly.
And so when I get anxious with his driving, no offense to my husband or anything, but I'll sit there and I'll just start tapping my chest, and that calms me a little bit.
It also
So I-
helps with your bronchial issues
Yeah.
you may have.
the thymus
Here, under the eye is where you can tap for sinuses.
doesn't the thymus help with the immune system? It helps kickstart the immune system too.
Yes.
So, I mean, tapping something that we're all familiar with, and it's generally easy. There's a lot of EFT certified practitioners. That's one that I'd really like to get in the near future is EFT and learning how to help people find their trigger points, because tapping is so non-invasive.
Yeah.
And it's just something that you can do in the shower, in the bathroom, in the bed, wherever you are when you start
You don't
feeling
even
that.
have to be home to do it.
Right.
What do
it can be
you
anywhere.
do when you're feeling that panic and anxiety?
Usually I start clenching my fists, and I start wringing my fingers.
Oh,
Set your goblet down.
Yes.
Or pumpkin spice.
I do this a lot, start messing with my fingers whenever I get anxious. And it's a massage.
Just massaging your hands.
Massaging
and
my-
touch.
yeah.
Have you done one thing I read again pre research, the 5 senses grounding practice?
I have tried. I cannot remember them all, especially in the midst of
Having an attack.
Right, I'm
having an
sure it's
attack.
hard. I mean, cognitively, it's hard to. A friend of mine, a supervisor of mine, does this thing where she talks about flipping your lid. So when we are calm and using our prefrontal cortex, we're able to think cognitively and clearly and have a logical side of brain. There is, however, the lizard brain. The lizard brain the way they describe it is pre-evolution. We mainly focused on reproduction, eating, and fight or flight. And so when people are experiencing the panic attacks, then their cognitive brain lid flips up, and the only thing that's functioning is that lizard brain, and you don't have the ability to sit there and think cognitively through problem situations. And so that's the anxiety attack aspect of it, is your lids flipped.
Right.
And so that, like you said, it's kind of hard to just work yourself through a practice when
Yeah.
your lids flipped.
Yeah.
So
I wonder if knowing how to do that, if you could actually use that. Okay, I know my lid slipped. Okay,
just use that as a
put it back,
Eventually-
and just do that and see if that would help you to focus again.
There are techniques that you can use to. One of my favorite techniques is whenever I'm going into an attack, I try to find something to focus on visually. I'm a very visual person. That's why the art therapy works for me.
right.
So visually, if I'm sitting there and there's a thunderstorm, there's fireworks or something like that, and you see me staring off into space, I'm trying to focus on something to keep myself calmed down
Yeah.
from going into that panic attack.
And that's one of the 5 senses grounding
Yes.
points. So you've got essentially what the 5 senses grounding practice is when you're in that state of panic,
Yes.
which I think we've all been there at least once, may not be to the same degree as PTSD, but we've all kind of been in that panic situation. Being able to catch yourself and say, okay, what's one thing I can focus on? And that's using your vision.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can even go into, asking yourself, what color is that item that I'm looking at? What's the shape of it? What's the name of the book, or whatever it may be? All of the features that you can visually pick up. And then another one is sound. What am I hearing right now? What are the sounds around me? I hear cars. There's cars out there. I hear, a train. I hear birds. I hear crickets. What are you listening to around you?
I hear thunder, and that puts you right back into it.
Yes.
And that depends on, and again, this is why there's multiple different ones, and some work better for others.
That's why I was saying the sound can be a trigger, which it is for me. So what I do whenever I know I'm still cognitive enough to know that I'm getting into that state, I find a focus point and I just turn the music up.
And so
To
maybe
drown
even
it out.
switching sounds. Like,
Mhm.
okay, so if you're aware that loud noises like thunder or fireworks, then being able to switch the sounds onto more calming, either melodical music or frequencies or something else, then you can switch your focus to that and away from the other.
Right.
What I'm struck about is like when you think about like sound, like storms and fireworks. You know how a lot of people know that animals get upset. Dogs will panic and run and hide, and cats. People are the same way,
People are the same.
and
way.
they don't think of it that way.
And people think it's funny too when there's a crash of thunder that makes you jump, but your dog runs under the couch. You think it's fun. Oh, look at him hiding! No, they suffer from a form of post-traumatic stress as well. Animals who have been stuck in a situation of, say, training with hunters, the sound of the gun. Some of them get past that. They know the sound of the gun means go. Find the raccoon, find the squirrel, whatever. But other ones, it terrifies them so much that they just want to hide from that sound.
My cat hates fireworks. Like, she hates it. And we've got a lot of people in the neighborhood that likes to let them off. And, I mean, we did too. And I kind of feel bad for that now because we were once those people that would buy $500 worth of fireworks and let them off to the big fireworks show for the family. But my cat hates them. Since we haven't been able to do them and now we're home with the cat, we can see that she hates them. She hides. And it was kind of like this, not really a running joke, but, me and my husband would say, well, it seems like our cat was, maybe in the war in her past life or something, you know what I mean? Because, but it's kind of also very sad for me to realize that I might have caused that for her.
Well, think about like how many people have lost their dogs because they were outside with them, or they were outside and somebody set off a fire
And they took off.
and they're running and they're so panicked they are just running, not panicking, and they get lost and people spend, trying to find them. But people do that too. They will run from the problems, not knowing where they're going or what they're doing. They just know they have to get away.
So
One of the things that I noticed, my husband and I used to breed dogs, and we had a big kennel that was set up, and we never paid much attention, really, to any kind of triggers with our dogs. A neighbor was setting off fireworks one night. He was probably about 20, 30 feet away from where the kennel was. He set off one of those cherry bombs, and my dogs literally, 3 of them, broke teeth trying to chew through the wire to get out of the pens. And
poor babies.
that kind of, what people need to keep in mind, that kind of fear, that fight or flight to get away from it, is the same thing that most people who suffer from PTSD go through, but because we're human, we don't want to be seen as, this weak or
Right, I mean,
terrified person. So we just sit there and,
Clench your
but
fist.
we
Clench
have
your
the
fist or-
same animal instincts.
yes, but
That's
people
our
don't.
lizard brain. I
People
mean,
don't make that connection. A lot of people don't make that connection.
but that's
When you live in a civilized world, even if you're having a panic attack, you're not supposed to let anybody see it.
Right.
Whereas dogs, in particular, because that's my thing is dogs, they are just going to show you. How terrified
because
they
they
are.
don't have that prefrontal cortex cognitive thinking
Right.
that we have in the societal pressures not to show it. But
Well,
let's
no,
say
they have their own societal pressures.
let's say that you're in an office and you're at a conference table and there's a room full of people and you start going into a moment.
Mhm.
Whether it be because you have to talk next in front of everybody or whatever it may be. You get a smell, something sends you to that thing. One of the other senses grounding practice that you can do is touch. And that means like feeling your feet. Thinking about feeling your feet in your shoes, on the floor, on the ground, the touch of the table, it's cold, on my hands. And that helps bring you, again, to the present moment and away from, the lid flip or the visions or whatever it is that you're having. It helps bring you back to that present moment and ground you. So that's one that I like to do right before public speaking of any sort, because I will get up there and I'm like shaking. Like I do it all the time, but it still scares the living bejesus out of me. And so that's what I'll do is I'll sit there and I'll focus on my feet. I can feel my toes wiggling in my shoes, feel the way they feel on the ground, the paper in my hand or the cold desk or something that helps, bring you back into a self-awareness of your own body. And I think that's a lot of the grounding practices for anxiety attacks is just that, a self-awareness of the present moment and how you feel in your body.
That just takes me back to my speech class in college. Oh my God. I had so much trouble with that. I was very quiet in high school, very reserved, kind of laid back, didn't really say a whole lot. So for me to get up in front of a room full of people and supposed to go, I, me, I, was the most difficult thing in the world. Now I kind of like discovered I've had a mouth since I went to college, and I haven't shut up. Hey, I have no problem with talking now, okay? But back then, it was very difficult.
Yeah.
So.
And it is. For me, being on camera like this, like these podcasts, if it wasn't for y'all, it was a no-go. I've been wanting to do something like this for a long time with Rediscover Health, because there's a lot of health things that I can talk about. But me being on camera, something about the camera, I can't see the people on the other end.
Really,
Yeah.
she's an idiot. What is she talking about?
Right.
Well,
Yeah,
speaking
but
of Rediscover
Not being
Health,
an idiot.
Yes.
we have pumpkin smoothies this morning.
Yes, indeed.
Pumpkin
my gosh.
pie smoothie.
We wanted to make sure our glasses were large enough for the audience
For
to
everybody
see.
to see them.
Mine's still fairly full because I've been drinking a whole lot.
Listen, we're kicking fall off right. We're having pumpkin pie smoothies for breakfast, and we're going right into the chili afterwards. So this is it. We're ready.
This is fall. We're ready.
Favorite time of year.
Mine too.
The colors.
But
of
that's
the
because my
leaves
birthday's this month, so.
Happy early birthday! Well, by the time the viewers see this, I guess it'll be after
It'll
your
be after
birthday.
your
Yeah.
birthday, yes.
So happy birthday, Shauna!
But fall has always been
It's
a
not
really
that-
good season.
That's only like 3 days off, so,
Yeah.
you know.
Can we sing her happy birthday?
No, no.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Shauna. Happy birthday to you.
And this is one of the reasons I don't like being on camera.
I was just like, happy birthday. Happy birthday. You know,
All right, Tina.
it is a Viking. I had to find it and send it to you. It is a Viking happy birthday, and they talk about plundering and
Her inner Viking came out.
Our inner Viking came
Uh-huh.
out.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's not what it sounded like.
Trust me, the video is much better. I can't think of what it's called, but it is and it is great.
Needless to say, though, these pumpkin spice.
There's nothing
movies
in it,
were
though,
amazing.
okay?
Yes.
Yes.
They are really good.
Pie in a
They're-
glass.
Yeah, there's nothing in it. I swear, there's no boozing.
No
for
booze
Christmas
or alcohol.
The only
morning.
thing, the only thing that this is missing is a little bit of cream on top.
Yeah.
Like pie with whipped cream. Maybe some vanilla in it.
Well,
There is
the
vanilla.
almond milk has vanilla in it.
Oh, okay.
It was
There is
vanilla
vanilla.
unsweetened almond milk, and then vanilla
And dates.
yogurt.
Oh.
And then there's the dates, the can of organic pumpkin puree, pumpkin pie spice.
Cinnamon, extra
extra
cinnamon.
With extra cinnamon.
And a
Y'all
little
told
bit
me
of
I needed
maple
extra
syrup.
cinnamon and a little bit of maple syrup. So there's
Maple
probably
syrup.
about a tablespoon of maple syrup. And then like a half a teaspoon of extra cinnamon and a little turmeric. And then as an extra kick, we put collagen in it just to kind of help with our skin, hair, and nails, y'all.
Everything
Yeah.
else.
I think that's a little late for me, but it
And
helped.
no, collagen's good. So yeah, that's it. I mean, that's it. And it tastes
It
like
is
it's
so
pumpkin
good.
pie
Mine's going.
without
Here we go.
crustless.
Cheers.
Too late.
Hey, it don't matter. We can always have cheers.
We're silly, y'all. So
Of course.
I had a drop left.
And I barely made a dent yet, but I'm working on it.
there's 8 million people in the United States alone that suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder.
Mhm. And did you see the statistics I sent you of how many of those people are committing suicide because
Yeah.
they have no outlet?
Mhm.
And this is Suicide Awareness Month also.
Yes, it is.
September 10th was actually Suicide Awareness Day.
Yes.
Having had lots of suicide within the family and friends, that's a day and that's an awareness that we take really serious in my family.
Mhm.
And so when you said that statistic with the PTSD and being the Suicide Awareness Month, that was just absolutely fitting for sure.
And one of the things that we brought that up for is if you think you need some help or you would like to get some help, come down to the store. Call us. We'll make sure Jeannie is here. And you will have an outlet, a place where you can just either talk or not talk or just release some of the stress.
You
And-
know that it's something that she's gone through, so she's very understanding of what you're going through.
Just as also a disclaimer, the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is 1-800-273-8255. If you are thinking anything along the lines of suicide, life, death, if you're feeling like you're in a crisis at this moment, please reach out to a counselor in the suicide hotline. Again, that number is 800-273-8255. I just want people to know that there's options.
Yes, there are all kinds of options out there.
And they're never alone.
Never.
No one's ever alone. No matter how much you feel like you are, you know.
Sometimes you just need a sounding board, someone to listen.
And actually hear what you're saying.
You notice the shirt says hug dealer. Sometimes that works too. Just give them a hug.
sometimes you don't even need to talk. You just need someone there.
Yeah.
And that's what we try to do.
With a lot of the services that we offer, from the massage therapy to the art therapy to the Reiki to the nutrition and health coaching even, you'd be surprised by how many coaching sessions, I mean, they don't turn into serious conversations like this per se, but there are, life anxiety moments, work, children, spouses, things like that. And those play a role in your health, and so that's your whole picture for holistic health coaching. What is it that you want to talk about or work on? If there is any sort of indication that you need further assistance that I'm not trained to do, of course, there's always referrals to therapists, and I know quite a few really good talk therapy counselors that I like to refer to. but it's really, and I think we've expressed this in a previous episode, being able to reach out and connect and know that there's someone there, and you don't have to do this alone.
That's right. A lot of people feel so isolated. They don't feel like they can talk to anybody about it. They can't show how much they're hurting. And this is very true, especially with our military. You gotta be strong. I'm a warrior. You gotta be strong.
Suck
Keep
it
it
up,
inside.
Buttercup.
Suck it up.
First responders,
And
too.
that doesn't always work when you get into one of those mindsets.
Yeah.
But you can't show it, and so you're internalizing it. And this just internalizing a lot of this causes health issues. Stress is an amazing little mechanism for destroying the body.
It is. Stress
And
does
people-
so much.
People just, they try to shake it off these days, but you really can't shake it off.
We don't always make the connections of what stress can do in the body,
Mm-hmm.
but stress can change the way your body utilizes blood sugar.
Mm-hmm.
Stress can change the way your body utilizes nutrients. Stress can change the way your body recognizes thyroid hormone. Stress can change the way your digestive system functions. Stress can change the way you sleep, which within itself
That's
can
a
do all
biggie
kinds
right
of
there.
things. Stress can change the way your body balances your hydration levels, and therefore can lead to things like hypertension. And stress can lead to
ulcers.
cancer. Stress can lead to all kinds of things when chronically stressed. And we don't talk about perceived stress enough in our society. We want to brush it off as, oh, you're stressed, calm down. It's not that simple.
It's really not. It takes a focused mind to be able to say, okay, I am way too stressed out. What am I going to do to relax a little bit? And I always encourage people, find something you really like doing and then sit down and do it. But if you're not in a position where you can do that, try the quickie 30-second meditations. These are not meditations where you have to close your eyes. These are not meditations where you need to be sitting down with a candle and music and all this other kind of stuff. Some of these meditations you can actually do while you're driving a car.
Just
And
breathing.
it doesn't impair your ability to drive the car and focus on the road.
Focusing on breathing.
Just breathing.
I can feel the
is a
breath
good
going
way.
in my nose and out my nose.
Yes.
There is some indication that people that have dissociative disorder
Mm-hmm.
should not meditate because it can throw them out of their body. It can make them disassociate.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is a word of caution there when we're talking about mental health and meditation, that yes, it can help with a lot of things, especially PTSD and anxiety, but if there is a disassociative factor there, those people should avoid meditation.
Well,
just a little disclaimer.
One of my well, you just keep throwing those in there. One of my
Works.
ways
We
of
wanna
getting
keep
rid
our
of some
ears.
stress is, and I'm an OCD type person, so if there's something on the floor, it needs to be picked up immediately. But I will sit there and actually take a tissue or a paper towel, and I focus on that and think about, okay, what's going through my mind right now? Okay, I don't need that, and I tear off a piece and throw it. Tear off a
that's a
piece
good
and
one.
throw it. And just get all of that emotion and all of those thoughts and just get rid of them. And then when I'm done and I'm back to myself, of course, in a hair's breadth, I'm out there with the vacuum cleaner. But you can always find a way where you can sort the thoughts, sort the feelings, and try to move past that by just understanding what they are and what caused them.
Now, with PTSD, so we've said that there's anxiety, and then there's the stress, panic, depression. There's also the intrusive thought side of it too.
Yes.
It can manifest in multiple different ways. Intrusive thoughts are particularly hard with people with OCD. because the obsessive compulsive aspect of it is you obsess over it, and then you have a compulsive behavior that comes behind as a reassurance or, some sort of, habit then that helps you with those unwanted intrusive thoughts. I tell you, one of the best resources that I have been able to find for myself and anxiety is called Rewire Your Anxious Brain. It's a book. How to use neuroscience of fear to end anxiety, panic, and worry. And it's written by Catherine Pittman and Elizabeth Carl. I've downloaded it as an audiobook on Audible. And I've got to say, I have some OCD type tendencies too, because I've listened to this book a couple times, and when I get into that anxiety state of mind, I will pull up a particular chapter in this book and just listen to it. Just that chapter. Mm-hmm. But it's almost like it's a comfort to me, because a lot of things when I was listening to this book, there's some things that didn't resonate with me, but then there were chapters like, oh yeah, that's me. I feel that. They're talking to me at this point. And knowing that there was somebody else out there with some sort of experience that was very similar to my own was a comfort, because then I knew I wasn't alone.
Okay, well, give the name of the book again.
Again, so that book is Rewire Your Anxious Brain, How to Use the Neuroscience of Fear to End Anxiety, Panic, and Worry. And that is by Catherine Pittman and Elizabeth Carl. And what I'm working on doing, since we're still in the beginning phases of the podcast episodes, is coming up with episode notes. So like particular resources that we talk about within the note or within the podcast, we can include with it, so that people can go back and refer to them too.
Good idea.
Yeah. I thought about that just a few minutes ago, guys.
There was
We
something
give a lot of
else
stuff.
I wanted to ask you. You were following a series, Joe Dispenza.
Joe Dispenza. Mm-hmm.
Dispenza, and this is on several places. It's also on Gaia. Would his methods help with post-traumatic stress?
Yes, they would. It's along this. His methods are along the lines of meditation. Most of his methods actually, they kind of combine the Rewire Your Anxious Brain concept with the meditation, and then you get like Joe Dispenza.
But that wouldn't help with people who are also disassociative.
Right, because that will throw them into an episode. Yes.
Okay.
I was just curious.
Yeah.
I'm going to switch it up a little bit here. Also associated with PTSD, substance abuse.
Yes.
Yes. Whether it be alcohol, pills, it don't matter.
Food.
Oh,
Food.
yeah. Oh, yes.
Food.
Compulsive.
Cigarettes. You got to take in consideration that these items are not a cure.
It's a temporary fix that causes more
Becomes
problems
a crutch.
down the road.
Mm-hmm. And to rely on that substance to get you through an episode, it just increases the intensity the next time one hits.
Which further increases the reliability of the substance.
Exactly.
Most times people will do that to numb themselves so they don't feel it.
Right.
But after a while, instead of taking it to help, they're just taking it because they don't want to feel bad anymore from the down from it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the addiction.
That's
That's
the
where it
addiction.
becomes an addiction.
You take it so that you can lift your spirits, and it's great for a while, but then you just start taking it because the down is so hard. I've been through that phase of my life.
And I think there is an addiction hotline number as well, drug, alcohol addiction hotline, and that number is 1-866-293-7031. So again, if this is resonating with you or someone that you know that experiences the drug and alcohol abuse or substance addiction, reaching out to that number. Again, it's 1-866-293-7031. And there are counselors available 24/7 to help with people experiencing those issues. And that both hotlines are completely confidential. This is important information, and I'm glad that we're able to talk about some of this on this episode and let people know that these hotlines and these resources are available to them. That is something that, in part of health coaching in my work, I make sure to have a list of these kind of references available to me and to my clients. So whether that be suicide, substance abuse, domestic violence, child abuse, there's all kinds of different resources available locally and nationally for all of those incidences.
There's also a lot of states have a hotline, and honestly, I don't know the number, for people who smoke. If you want to stop smoking,
Let's ask Google.
or there you go. If you want to stop smoking, you can call them, and they help you free, not just with counseling, but they will help you with patches. They will help you with the gum or whatever you can use
So
to try and get past this.
West Virginia hotline is called Quitline. Participants are eligible for 8 weeks of free nicotine replacement therapy, patches, gum, or lozenges. Call 1-800-QUIT-NOW. That's 1-800-784-8669 or 1-877-966-8784.
Now, you said that was West Virginia. So
Yes.
other states may have their own.
Yeah, they have
Yes.
their own
Okay.
to help with
So you
that.
need to look up which one ever applies for you.
Now this here, smokefree.gov, the 1-800-QUIT-NOW, 1-800-784-8669, does talk about all states have the Quit line counselors. So I believe that one's going to be a national phone number, the National Network for Tobacco Cessation. So that is also a resource available for those that are wanting to quit smoking and are having a hard time doing so, and they have counselors and all of the products available for free for up to 8 weeks.
So as you can see from this conversation, you can't really say, oh, blow it off. PTSD is an honest to God problem for a lot of people. And you can't laugh at them and say, oh, it's all in your head, move on. It doesn't work that way. It just doesn't work that way. So when we talk about subjects like this, we're trying to help the people who are suffering from these things, but we're also trying to enlighten others to be just,
Consider
a
it.
little more considerate of what's going on,
Awareness.
have a little bit more compassion for people.
Because you never know who it's affecting around you.
That's it.
Blow it off. Get over it. You're making a big deal out of nothing.
It's all in your head.
It's all in your head. And there's several other.
I'm sure it can't be that bad.
For anybody who has ever suffered from depressive episodes, clinical depression or whatever, you have some of what PTSD does. And you should be very understanding of what's going on with this particular syndrome. It's just not something you can blow off. We'd like for people to get help.
In the military alone, 22 soldiers a day commit suicide. 22 a day. So that's just in the military. That's not everyone else. So it just, and a lot of people, you said there was how many? 8 million suffering from PTSD. That have been diagnosed. That's not the people that haven't been diagnosed.
Because they don't want to go to the doctor for a diagnosis.
or they don't have insurance to
Or
go
they
to
don't
the
have
doctor.
insurance. That's a huge one.
That's a real huge one.
And unfortunately, my grandfather falls under that suicide veteran statistic. So like I said, it's something that we take very seriously in our family. And, you know, we've all got our own training here. None of us are licensed counselors or therapists. So please make sure that you understand that what we discuss here in these podcasts are not for medical diagnosis. They're not for
They're for information.
treatment. We're not.
Informational only.
Yeah,
Knowledge.
this is just information and just knowledge and awareness of topics that, you know, people don't like to talk about. And you know, we do have a veteran in our group.
We have several veterans that are associated with the store,
Yes,
actually.
and so, you know, that's 1 in 4 right now. And, you know, as she said in the very beginning, there's things like fireworks and thunderstorms that trigger certain emotions. And so this was a topic that we wanted to talk about because of the fact you just never know who it is in your neighborhood or around you, and it's something that we can't ignore and blow off and pretend like it's all in their head anymore. We've got to listen, all of us.
And you may have family members who don't discuss it or won't go, that if you recognize it and know it's there, that maybe you can help them get the help they need.
So we want to draw awareness to the hotlines that are available, the resources that are available, the different aspects of non-medical care that can help with relieving stress and anxiety episodes and PTSD, some of which we do here, as mentioned. So this episode is just one to help draw awareness and attention to a sensitive topic.
We thank you for joining us. Have a wonderful week and take care of yourself.
And for the military folks out there,
Thank you so much for
until
your service.
Valhalla, IGY6.
Thank you guys for listening. We appreciate it. For more information, check us out on our website, www.clswv.com, and follow us on Facebook at CLSWV.
And
Until,
if you need to, come
she's
in.
got it.
come into the shop at 89 Old Main Plaza, St. Albans, West Virginia.
Until next time, guys. Healthy
Bye.
blessings.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Muses of the Crystal Lotus. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Just a reminder that this podcast is for educational purposes only. This podcast is not a substitute for professional care by a doctor or other qualified medical professionals. By listening to this podcast, you agree not to use this podcast as medical advice to treat any medical condition in either yourself or others. Consult your physician for any medical issues that you may be having. This entire disclaimer also applies to any guests or contributors to the podcast. Under no circumstances shall the Crystal Lotus shop, any guests or contributors to the podcast, be responsible for damages arising from use of this podcast. Until next time, healthy blessings.